Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Wookich, and I have my colleague Joshua Rosner with me here today. And we are part of the Just-in-Time AI Sports Gambling Risk Mitigators group. This is going to be just a brief overview of the application as part of the Sport Marketing Analytics Strategies and Health Lab. So I'll leave it to Josh to go over the project overview.
Yeah, so our project, it's an AI-driven, just-in-time adaptive intervention for gambling risk mitigation and ethical engagement in the Olympic movement. So our goal is basically to have real-time sentiment analysis on posts on Reddit and social media to detect risky gambling behaviors. Specifically, we have it integrated with college basketball uh, so that we could keep track of everything that's going on with that. We have personalized notifications, so depending on if we decide there's an anxious sentiment or if there's anger or happiness, we send out personalized notifications to try to stop people from engaging in these risky behaviors. We also have a user check-in, so we could have people log how they're feeling at the moment and things like that, and we take that into account for these notifications. And this is entirely built using React Native for the front end and Django for the back end, so we could deploy it on iOS and Android.
Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and give everyone a quick demo of it here. So I've got it running on my device in front of me. The first thing that users will see once they are signed in or signed up for the first time is this kind of home or welcome screen. So this contains a couple pieces of useful information. The main focus is going to be the check-in feature, which Joshua touched on real briefly. And this is kind of just an auxiliary feature of the app that we're hoping to use in the sentiment notifications later down the line. Right now, it's just more so to collect data so that we can draw correlations between, the score of a game and how the user is feeling. So the user will be prompted to do this every time that they open the app. And so let's say I rate 4 stars. You can also, click show more and the user can update their weight. And so again, that's all health related, part of the research study here. And so if they don't want to update their weight, they don't have to. It'll pre-fill what they have entered previously. And the user can go ahead and tap save, and it will save that check-in for them. Later on, if they want to go back and look at their progress history, they can click on that little clock icon in the top corner and see all of their logs from any month. So April, March, this is just an example account that has some logs on it. Below, you'll also see the section for My Teams. So this will contain any upcoming games today of the user's favorite teams. So if the user doesn't have any favorite teams, it will tell them that. But that kind of brings us into the schedule tab, which will show these games that are upcoming. And so today is the final 4 games. And so we've got the Florida and Auburn game and the Houston and Duke game. And so you can see here that I have Florida and Duke favorited, which is why they showed up here under the My Teams section. If the game was ongoing, it would also show the current score on both of these. So it would show the score directly in the homepage. Back to the schedule view, you can also see for what it looks like for games that are ongoing. So we've got Boise State versus Nebraska right now, and you can see the scoring information as well as the time of the game and where the game currently is. So first half and 3 minutes and 56 seconds left. And I'll kind of just show you real quick too what it looks like when you favorite a game. Any favorites that are ongoing will appear at the top. And then back on the home screen, again, you'll see the time left, you'll see that it's live as well as the scores, and that updates in real time. You can also tap on the date up here to see any past or future games. So if I roll back to April 1st, let's say, you can see all of the completed games and the winner will be highlighted in green. And again, if you have any favorites, they'll show toward the top. We also have a search feature in here. So if you wanted to search for a specific team that day, you could search. So if I search Chattanooga, for example, you can filter down that way. And then if I go ahead and move on to the popular section, this is where that social media integration that Joshua touched on comes in. So it's going to default to UF as this is a UF primarily based around UF research project. However, we support a number of teams nearby and just in the SEC in general in this section. So let's just go with UF for now. This is kind of where that sentiment analysis is going to start playing in. So the system every 5 minutes is going to take a look at all of these comments if there's an ongoing game for this team. So later tonight when Florida is playing, every 5 minutes, the system is going to look at all these comments and kind of just determine the overall sentiment of fans based on the social media data. If users want to view it themselves and not rely on what the system is doing on a, predetermined time interval, they can also look here and see kind of the comments that users are leaving and also the sentiment for each individual comment. It's important to note, and I'll talk real briefly about the sentiment analysis notifications in just a moment, but the notifications are all going to be based on overall sentiment. And so if you have mostly neutral sentiment, it's going to send a neutral notification. If it's mostly nervousness, it will send one that's more tailored to that. But again, this is going to be kind of the same content throughout. So if we open up a different thread here, we can see more of the comments. Here's a couple with amusement and neutral. And again, the same thing goes for all of these other universities. So here's the Auburn subreddit. And these may not all be related to basketball. It's just going to be around Auburn sports, but the system will generally try to choose the threads that are most active at any given time to perform that sentiment analysis on. It's going to choose whichever ones are at the top, basically. Okay, and then moving on to the notifications tab. Right now, it's not a great example because there are no ongoing games within the Final Four that we are doing the sentiment analysis of, but I have some notifications here from previous games just to give you an idea of what that looks like. So users will receive real-time notifications under this page and also just within their system notifications based on the sentiment of the game at that point. And so as you can see here, I had Auburn favorited as one of my teams on the top two, and then Florida was favorited on the bottom, hence why that notification came in. These ones all seemed to be mostly neutral sentiment because these scores were generally pretty close. If it's more of a blowout, or again, if the social media sentiment is just different, these notification contents are going to change. So it's highly dependent on what people are saying on social media. And obviously, that is ultimately the point of this project. And then I'll real briefly touch on the profile tab. This is just where users can update their personal information. Again, this is kind of just used to aggregate what kind of users are feeling certain types of ways. And again, we link this with their check-in data so we can get an overall picture of the users that are using this app in an effort to support the research study. And then users can also sign out up here with this top right button and sign in or create a new account if they desire. And then just the last thing I'll show as part of the demo that we've included is a link to Dr. Chong's research survey that kind of goes hand in hand with this project. So if you tap on that, it's just going to take you over to the Qualtrics page for it. And we are, persuading users of the app to fill this out as well to support the research project. So that was just a super quick demo. I will go ahead and pass it off again to Joshua for the acknowledgements.
Yeah, so for our acknowledgements, we have a lot of people that we'd like to thank. We'd like to thank Associate Provost David Reed and Dean Michael Reed. We would also like to thank the entire Gator Accelerator team for their support. And additionally, we would also like to thank everyone in the departments of sports management, health education and behavior, clinical health and psychology, and computer science for their significant contributions and support. And last but not least, we wanted to thank Dr. Chong for supporting us. Every week we've been meeting with him so that we could get this done, and it wouldn't have been possible without him.
Yeah, and I'd also just like to mention our other teammate, Jake Dolly, that couldn't make it to the call today, but he also contributed to this project and did a lot of the groundwork with the sentiment analysis. And so it's important that we call him out. So thank you for listening.